Last week, a front page newspaper headline read this way: assisted dying bill set to be rushed into law. Well, of course, it's not really assisted dying. If you're assisting someone to die, you're helping them commit suicide, aren't you? So we much prefer to call it assisted suicide, and that's what they're really talking about here. But there is massive pressure now in the media, with celebrities and newspapers alike joining in to campaign for a change in the law on assisted suicide. Also last week we had a citizens jury report come out which apparently was in favour of assisted suicide or changing the law on assisted suicide. But if you looked into it more deeply, they picked jury members so that 69% of them already agreed with changing the law anyway. So it wasn't really such a big deal. That was what the conclusion of that group of people was in the end. The Mail reported that what's happening here is the government is trying to get some MPs who came high on the ballot for private members' bills to use their private members' bill rights to change the law on assisted suicide. So we'll see if that happens, but if that's what happens, then it really will be rushed into law, as the Mail headline put it. But surely assisted suicide is the very last thing you want to be rushing through Parliament. This is a really serious issue. It's an issue of life and death. It's an issue that is very hotly contested, very highly controversial, and it deserves a proper debate. And I would welcome a proper debate, and we should have a proper debate. But one thing the assisted suicide lobby knows is that the more people are informed about this issue, the more they're likely to oppose assisted suicide. That's what the trend is. But what we have now is a new Parliament with a whole load of new MPs who aren't so well informed on the issue, who are more likely to be swayed by emotive stories about assisted suicide. We want to protect lives, though. The experience of countries anywhere else in the world where this has been legalised is that it's a slippery slope. It becomes something where they gradually water down the criteria. What counts as a terminal illness gets watered down. And the attitude of society changes so that people, and including medics, start to think some lives are not worth living. And that puts pressure on the most vulnerable people and disabled people in our society and says, your life's not really worth living. And that's a horrible thing to say to anybody, especially the vulnerable, who surely we should be the people we should be most protecting and looking after and valuing as a society. So we're very concerned about the massive implications of changing the law on assisted suicide. All is not lost at the moment. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has said that he's concerned about the implications of changing the law on this. The Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey, has made very clear that he's personally opposed to changing the law on assisted suicide. So the battle is up there, but nevertheless the pressure is really high. We could be seeing something fast-tracked through Parliament quite quickly on this. If you haven't already written to your MP on it, start to engage with them now. These MPs need to know this is a hot button issue. There'll be lots of very concerned members of their constituency who don't like a change, who don't want a change in this law. Please express your concerns to your MP, make that clear to them, get them starting to understand this is a highly controversial issue, and recognise that ultimately it's one of the most important issues we face. It is, after all, an issue of life or death.